What is the one feeling that has stopped you more times than any failure ever could? Think about that for a moment. Not the lack of money, not the lack of time, not even the lack of skill. Something deeper, something you feel in your chest right now. That quiet voice that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" That heavy pull in your stomach when you imagine taking a real risk. That is not laziness. That is not weakness. That is your psychology trying to keep you small. And here's the truth most people never understand. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is not designed to make you rich. It is not designed to make you powerful. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. Safe means familiar. Safe means predictable. Safe means exactly where you are right now. Even if where you are right now is painful. Even if where you are right now is breaking your spirit. The human mind will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven every single time. That is not opinion. That is neuroscience. That is psychology. That is the pattern that controls 99% of people on this planet. So let me ask you a second question, a harder one. If your own mind is wired to stop you, how do you ever break through? You have heard the name Tony Robbins before. Maybe you think he is just a man on a stage. Maybe you think motivation is just words that fade by Tuesday morning. But that is because you have never understood what he actually discovered. Tony Robbins did not invent positive thinking. He did not come to sell you affirmations in a mirror. He came to show you something much more raw, much more real. He came to show you that every single human action is driven by one invisible force, one need, one hunger that sits beneath every decision you have ever made. And until you understand that force, you will stay stuck. You will stay frustrated. You will keep starting on Monday and quitting by Wednesday. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. And being human without understanding your own psychology is like trying to sail a ship without knowing the ocean has currents. You will go nowhere, or worse, you will go in circles. Think about the last time you really wanted to change. Maybe it was a business idea. Maybe it was getting in shape. Maybe it was leaving a toxic relationship. You felt the fire. You felt the inspiration. You made a plan. And then what happened? 3 days passed. A week passed. Suddenly the fire was gone. You told yourself you would start again next month. That is not a lack of discipline. That is a lack of understanding. Your brain measured the change as a threat, so it released chemicals to make you tired, to make you doubt, to make you forget why you even cared. This is the pattern Tony Robbins spent his life decoding. He realized that motivation is not something you find. It is not a lightning bolt from the sky. Motivation is a state, and a state is just the sum of your physiology and your focus. Change your body, change your focus, change your state, change your life. That simple, that hard. But most people never learn this. Most people wait for the mood. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the perfect moment when fear disappears. That moment never comes. Fear does not disappear. Fear transforms. Fear becomes excitement when you move toward it. Fear becomes paralysis when you run from it. That is a psychological fact. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between fear and excitement. The same chemicals flood your body, the same heart rate, the same sweating palms. The only difference is the story you tell yourself. I am scared keeps you stuck. I am excited moves you forward. That is not a trick. That is not fake positivity. That is a neurological switch you can flip right now, in this moment, just by changing the words you use inside your own head. Now here is the reward I promised you. The reason to stay with me until the very end of this video. Most people will watch motivation for 10 minutes and forget it in 10 hours. But you are not most people. You are still reading. You are still listening. That already puts you in the top 5%. So here is what I will give you if you stay. By the end of this script, you will not just understand Tony Robbins. You will understand the exact psychological pattern that creates lasting change. Not theory, not inspiration that dies. A real pattern, a sequence, a set of steps that your brain cannot argue with. Steps that work whether you are broke or rich, happy or depressed, young or old. Because they are built on how the human mind actually works, not how self-help books wish it worked. This is the difference between knowledge and transformation. Knowledge fills your head. Transformation changes your life. And I am going to give you the second one. So let us go deeper. Let us go where most people never go. Inside the architecture of your own decisions. Tony Robbins teaches something called the 6 human needs. These are not opinions. These are not beliefs. These are the hidden drivers behind every single choice you have ever made, every relationship you have stayed in, every job you have tolerated, every dream you have abandoned. The 6 needs are certainty, uncertainty, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. But here is what most seminars will not tell you. The first 4 needs are addictive. They are the needs of your ego, the needs of your survival brain. Certainty feels good because it removes anxiety. Uncertainty feels good because it creates excitement. Significance feels good because it gives you value. Connection feels good because it stops loneliness. But here is the trap. You can meet all 4 of those needs in a destructive way. You can feel certain by never taking risks. You can feel uncertain by creating drama. You can feel significant by complaining or playing the victim. You can feel connected by joining groups that hate the same people you hate. Most of the world lives exactly like that. And they call it normal. They call it life. But it is not life. It is a cage made of invisible wires. Growth and contribution are different. Growth is the need to expand, to learn, to become more than you were yesterday. Contribution is the need to give, to matter beyond yourself, to leave something behind. These 2 needs are the doorway to real fulfillment. And here's the psychology that changes everything. You cannot be truly happy if you only meet the first 4 needs. You will always feel empty, always chasing the next hit of certainty or significance, always exhausted. But when you add growth and contribution, everything shifts. Your problems become smaller, your fears become weaker, your past loses its grip. Because you are no longer living for comfort, you are living for meaning. And meaning is the only thing that outlasts pain. Think about the most difficult time in your life. What got you through? Was it money? Was it comfort? No, it was something bigger than yourself. A child, a purpose, a promise, a dream that would not die. That is contribution, that is growth, that is the engine of human resilience. And Tony Robbins built his entire life's work around teaching people how to turn that engine on. Not with fluff, with psychology, with patterns, with questions that break old programming. Here is one of those questions right now. What has this pattern of playing small cost you already? Not what will it cost. What has it already taken? Your peace, your time, your relationships, your self-respect. Add it up. Let it hurt for a moment. Because that hurt is not your enemy. That hurt is your fuel. That hurt is the signal that something inside you is ready to change. Most people avoid pain, but the people who transform their lives learn to use pain. They learn to make pain their teacher, their driver, their reason for never going back. This is not cruelty. This is psychology. The human brain is far more motivated by the fear of loss than the hope of gain. That is a proven fact. So if you want to change, do not just think about what you will gain. Think about what you have already lost. Think about what you will lose in the next 5 years if nothing changes. Let that burn. Let that become unbearable, and then move. You do not need more information. You do not need another course. You do not need a perfect plan. You need a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, a real decision. Tony Robbins defines a decision as cutting off any other possibility. The word comes from Latin. It means to cut away. When you truly decide, you cut away every excuse, every exit, every maybe later. That is rare. That is powerful. That is the moment your psychology shifts from victim to creator. And that decision is available to you right now. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now. Because ready is a lie. Ready is the mind's way of keeping you safe. Ready keeps you exactly where you are. The only way to become ready is to act before you are ready. That is not reckless. That is biological. Your brain builds confidence through action, not the other way around. You do not wait for confidence to appear. You act and confidence follows. That is the sequence. That is the secret that 90% of people reverse. So here is where we stand at the end of this first section. You have looked at the hidden wiring of your own mind. You have seen that safety is not your friend. You have seen that pain can be fuel. You have seen that a real decision is a knife that cuts away every excuse. And you have been offered something rare, a pattern, a sequence, a way out that does not depend on luck or talent. It depends on understanding. And you are already understanding more than most people ever will. But the question remains, the question that started this whole journey. What is the one feeling that has stopped you more times than any failure ever could? If you answered honestly, you know it now. It is fear. But not the fear of falling, the fear of flying. the fear of becoming who you are truly capable of being. That is the real enemy. And in the next section, we are going to destroy that enemy. Not with courage speeches, with psychology, with the exact steps Tony Robbins used to help millions break through their own ceilings. Stay with me, because the best part is just beginning. Now here is the second section, continuing directly from the first. No repeated phrases, no speaker mentioned, same psychological depth, same motivational flow. You have just looked at the fear. Now let me show you why that fear is actually a liar. Fear tells you that you are not ready. Fear tells you that you will fail. Fear tells you that people will laugh. But fear never tells you the full truth. The full truth is that staying small is more dangerous than failing. The full truth is that regret lasts longer than any embarrassment. The full truth is that your time on this earth is not a rehearsal. This is the main event, right now. And every day you wait is a day you never get back. That is not meant to scare you. That is meant to wake you up. Because psychology shows that people on their deathbed do not regret the risks they took. They regret the risks they did not take. They regret the words they did not say, the love they did not chase, the business they did not start, the version of themselves they were too afraid to become. That is the real pain. That is the pain that never heals. And you still have time to avoid it, but not forever. Tony Robbins teaches something called the pain-pleasure principle. It is the most powerful force in human behavior. Every single thing you do either to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. That is not philosophy. That is biology. That is how your nervous system has operated since the day you were born. The problem is that most people have short-term wiring. They avoid immediate pain, even if it creates massive long-term pain. They chase immediate pleasure, even if it destroys their future. You eat the cake because it tastes good now. You skip the workout because it feels hard now. You stay in the wrong relationship because leaving feels scary now. Your brain is trading your future for 5 minutes of comfort. And it happens so fast you do not even notice. So how do you change it? You do not fight your nature. You use it. You reprogram what your brain sees as painful and pleasurable. You make the pain of staying the same greater than the pain of changing. You make the pleasure of your future self more real than the pleasure of right now. That is what Tony Robbins did for himself. That is what he taught to world champions, billionaires, and presidents. Not because he had magic, because he understood the lever. Every human being has a lever inside them. Pull it one way and you stay stuck forever. Pull it the other way and you become unstoppable. That lever is the association you have in your nervous system between certain actions and certain feelings. Change the association, change the behavior, change the life. Let me give you an example that will stick with you. Think about a food you once loved and now cannot stand. Maybe you got sick after eating it. Now just the smell makes you nauseous. Nothing about the food changed. Your association changed. In one moment, your brain rewired pleasure into pain. That is not weakness. That is power. Because if your brain can do that with food, it can do that with anything. With procrastination, with fear, with self-doubt. You can associate so much pain to staying the same that change becomes the only option. You can associate so much pleasure to your future self that your current excuses feel disgusting. That is not positive thinking. That is neurological conditioning. And it is available to you right now, this second, without a coach, without a course, just by deciding to link massive pain to your old patterns and massive pleasure to your new ones. But most people will not do this. Do you know why? Not because they are lazy, because they have never been shown how. They have never had someone walk them through the exact steps. They have never understood that their feelings are not facts. Feelings are signals. Signals can be changed. You are not angry. You are interpreting a situation as threatening. You are not depressed. You are focusing on what is missing instead of what is present. You are not afraid. You are imagining a future that has not happened yet. Every feeling you have is created by two things: your physiology, your focus. Change your breathing, change your posture, change what you are looking for, and the feeling changes automatically. That is not theory. That is the foundation of neuro-linguistic programming. That is what Tony Robbins built into every single one of his breakthroughs. So let us do something real right now. No theory, no stories, just action. Sit up straight, roll your shoulders back, lift your chin slightly. Take a deep breath, not a shallow chest breath, a deep belly breath. Hold it for a second. Now exhale slowly. Do that 3 times. Notice what happened. Your mind quieted, your body relaxed, your focus sharpened. That took 12 seconds. 12 seconds to change your state. 12 seconds to change your psychology. And you can do that anytime. Before a difficult conversation, before a workout, before a creative block. You do not need hours of meditation. You need the knowledge that your body and mind are one system. Change the body, change the mind. That is the fastest path to a new results. Now here is where most people get lost. They know what to do, they just cannot make themselves do it. That gap between knowing and doing is the graveyard of unrealized potential. Tony Robbins calls it the invisible ceiling. You hit it every time you try to grow. Your brain says, "This is uncomfortable, let us go back." And most people go back. They go back to the familiar pain because at least they know how to handle it. But the people who break through, they do something different. They redefine what comfort means. They realize that comfort is not peace. Comfort is slow death. Comfort is the absence of growth. And without growth, there is no fulfillment, no excitement, no real joy. Only numbness, only distraction, only the quiet ache of knowing you could be more. You have felt that ache. Everyone has. The question is what you do with it. Most people numb it. They scroll, they eat, they drink, they watch, they buy, anything to avoid the silence where that ache lives. But that ache is not your enemy. That ache is your compass. That ache is the part of you that still remembers who you were meant to become. It is not broken. It is not weak. It is just tired of waiting. And it will keep aching until you either listen or die. That sounds harsh. But harsh is kind. Harsh is honest. Harsh is the only thing that cuts through the lullaby of mediocrity that most of the world is singing. So let me ask you something that might be uncomfortable. What is one thing you know you should do, but you keep avoiding? Do not think about it. Say it in your head right now. One thing, one action, one conversation, one decision. Now ask yourself why. Not the excuse, the real why. Underneath the excuse. Underneath, I do not have time or I am not ready. Keep digging. You will find fear. You will find the voice that says, what if I fail? But here is the question that destroys that voice. What if you succeed? What if that one thing changes everything? What if that one decision opens a door you did not even know existed? You have been protecting yourself from failure. But in doing so, you have also been protecting yourself from success. That is the deal your brain made without asking you. And you can break that deal, right now. Tony Robbins has a phrase. The moment you make a true decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. That is not magic. That is psychology. When you truly decide, your brain starts filtering reality differently. It starts noticing opportunities you could not see before. It starts attracting people and resources that match your new commitment. This is called the reticular activating system. It is a network of neurons in your brain that filters information based on what you have decided is important. Have you ever bought a car and then suddenly seen that same car everywhere? The car was always there. Your brain just was not looking for it. The same thing happens with opportunity. When you decide to change, your brain starts looking for evidence that change is possible. And it always finds it. Always. Not because the world changed, because you changed. But here is the warning that no one gives you. When you start moving toward your real potential, resistance increases. The people around you might get uncomfortable. Your old habits will scream for attention. Your own mind will throw every memory of past failure in your face. That is not a sign to stop. That is a sign you are finally on the right track. Resistance is the shadow of growth. It only appears when you are pushing against your own limits. If everything feels easy, you are not growing. You are coasting. And coasting is just slow decline disguised as peace. So what do you do when resistance comes? You do not fight it. You do not run from it. You thank it. You say, "Thank you for reminding me that I am alive. Thank you for showing me where my edge is. Now watch me push past you." That is not arrogance. That is psychological reframing. You take the same energy that was stopping you and you redirect it into fuel. Every great performer knows this. Every athlete, every entrepreneur, every artist. They feel the same fear you feel, the same doubt, the same resistance. The only difference is that they expect it. They welcome it. They know that fear is the price of admission to a meaningful life. You cannot remove fear. You can only decide whether fear leads you or you lead fear. Now let us bring this back to Tony Robbins. People think he is successful because he is confident. That is backward. He is confident because he has taken action so many times that his brain learned a new pattern. Confidence is not a gift. Confidence is a habit. It is the residue of repeated action in the face of uncertainty. You do not need to feel confident to start. You need to start to feel confident. That is the sequence. That is the secret that changes everything. And you have everything you need to start right now. Not more knowledge. Not a better plan. Just the willingness to feel uncomfortable for 5 minutes. Just the courage to disappoint your old self so your new self can be born. You are still here. You are still listening. That means something inside you is ready. That means the ache is finally louder than the fear. Do not waste this moment. These moments do not come back. They open like a door and then close just as fast. The question is not whether you can change. The question is whether you will change. Not someday, not when it is easier, now. Because now is the only time that has ever existed. Now is the only time you have ever had power. Now is the only time you will ever make a decision that matters. And that decision is waiting. It has always been waiting. It will wait until your last breath. But you do not have to wait that long. You can choose right now. Not to be perfect. Not to have all the answers. Just to take one step. One small step toward the person you know you are meant to become. That step will not feel heroic. It will feel awkward. It will feel small, but it will be real. And real is how every transformation begins. Not with a bang, with a whisper, with a decision that no one else sees, with a voice inside that finally says, enough. Say it now, in your head. Say it like you mean it. Enough. Let that word land. Let it settle. And then take that one step. Write that message, make that call, open that document, tie those shoes. Do not wait for the feeling to come. Move, and the feeling will chase you. That is the law. That is the psychology. That is the pattern that has worked for every person who ever broke through their own ceiling. You are next. Not because you are lucky, because you are finally ready to stop asking for permission and start giving it to yourself.